Now, if you've been here before, you've heard me talk about Western spirituality or about Jesus' spirituality, or even once I spoke about the spirituality of Christmas, which I particularly like. I know nobody really knows what I mean by that, but Christmas is coming up here in Europe, in Germany, where I live, and there is a spirituality that is associated with Christmas, the Christmas spirituality. That was particularly good. Yeah. So, well, Jesus invites people to study with him, to learn this spirituality. And I've also been talking in more recent videos about how he invites those people also to serve and serve with him, serve like him. But it may be still somewhat unclear what it is that Jesus represents. What is his spirituality about? How do we categorize it? Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike, and this is Conspiracy Commentaries, talking about Dallas Willard's The Divine Conspiracy. This is the last of 3 on Chapter 3. We have been doing this for 4 years now, spent 2 years on Chapter 3, and that does explain why there have been so few videos on Dallas Willard this year. Another reason is Dallas Willard doesn't have the same appeal that he does outside of Europe within Europe. I know that was a complicated sentence, but he's not terribly well known here, which is a good reason why we should be talking about him, because this book is one of the best books that I own in this room, and I'm reading it now for the umpteenth time, and it's just got some really great stuff. So we're talking here, like I said, 3rd chapter, very last major section in the chapter, Jesus, Master of Intellect, and the section for today is called The Growing Wave of Unfaith. And reading this again, I realized that this is one of the sections that makes this book stand out as a classic. It's one of the reasons why people are still reading it today, because you see in this Dallas Willard working as a social critic or as a prophet. And he's not just on a soapbox, he's not just railing about people that disagree with him. He actually comes at it from the perspective of a teacher, of a scholar, and he has the arguments, whether it's the historical arguments or the philosophical arguments, to explain why the situation that we've gotten ourselves in today just doesn't fit with reality. Now, what he's going to talk about here, the very first phrase is the cultural reality, he calls it. He puts it in scare quotes. Now, there will be no genuine discipleship to Jesus as long as we believe this cultural reality. All that stuff we talked about at the beginning, the spirituality of Jesus, the spirituality of Christmas, this idea of being a student of Jesus. Nobody within the church, nobody outside of the church is going to think that's a very good idea as long as we accept the so-called cultural reality. Well, what is it? What is the cultural reality that he's going to talk about? My word for it is the great indifference. It's this great indifference that you find, especially across Europe, but increasingly in other parts of the world, towards Jesus and what Jesus has to bring, towards this spirituality of Christmas. And what's behind that is the idea that Jesus's philosophy or his spirituality is not a serious intellectual option. It's not a serious intellectual option. And this idea is mainly perpetuated through the universities. It's seen in how the universities currently regard Jesus as not somebody who really has anything important to say to them in their fields and also to them in their lives. Now, in the chapter here, lots of little hints at how we got to that point in history, and if you would like to hear Dallas give some of the details there, I've been listening to a talk called I think How Moral Knowledge Disappeared from the University from 2002. I'll put the link in the description below. And he talks about the ascendancy of empiricism and the ascendancy of the will and other things. But he's just going to give you the bare bones of that historical process here. But he's going to give us a reading out of Evelyn Waugh's Brideshead Revisited. And he talks about how a particular character had never been told that the Jesus' spirituality expressed here, quoting, a coherent philosophic system and intransigent historic claims. He'd never been told that. It's not part of the public relations that we do for Jesus today. We don't talk about it being a coherent philosophic system. And intransigent means uncompromising. So these are historical claims that you can't skew in other directions. They're uncompromising. They're just parts of history. So what is it that Jesus represents? What is this spirituality of Christmas? Dallas Willard calls it a spiritual understanding of reality in the manner of Jesus. That's what it is. It's a spiritual understanding, philosophical, intellectual, coherent, and that's what it needs to be represented as. That's what Jesus represented it as. Now, what keeps the larger world from accepting it as that? And Dallas's word for this is presumption. Just sheer presumption. They've really not ever looked into it. The powerful, though vague and unsubstantiated presumption. Nobody has really looked at the relevant arguments for this. They just live in this kind of bubble in which Jesus really doesn't have anything intellectually serious to say. And therefore, as that's communicated into the culture, you experience a great indifference to the spirituality of Christmas and the invitation to become Jesus's follower and to serve with him and like him. And there you have it. Well, that's what I've got for you today on the Divine Conspiracy. If you like this kind of stuff, like it with your finger, and you could subscribe to the channel, but even better, there's a newsletter that can be found at Sanctus Institute, and then you can find out about other Dallas Willard stuff that we're doing, as well as other things in Western spirituality, in Europe, and more broadly. So see you next time. Bye.